Okay. Um, First of all, thank you so much. You are our first speaker for the Let Me Speak campaign this round about addiction. So we'll start off by who are you? Just tell us something a little brief about yourself.
Kia ora whānau, my name's Tyler Repia. I was born and raised in a little hood named Stokes Valley, but I also grew up in Upper Hutt. I'm the second youngest of 6 siblings, and that's a bit about me.
And how old are you?
I'm 21 years old.
Oh, yeah, Inez. And what made you want to share your story on the Let Me Speak campaign?
So I pretty much just came here to share my personal experience on addiction, how it's affected my whānau, my community, and what more needs to be done to prevent people following in those footsteps. We all have a story, and I just wanted to be brave and tell mine.
Ooh, love it, love it, love it. Okay, well, it's an honour for us to hear your story. So, where does your story begin?
I would say my story begins probably even before I was born. So my nannies and my korors, they were born into an era of oppression. It was a pretty hard time for Māoris in the 50s, 60s, early 70s. They faced a lot of trauma, a lot of violence, hardship, abuse, a disconnection of culture, those were the days where Māori was pretty much smacked out of them. I reckon generational trauma plays a big part into the foundation of who we are as people today, in the present. Due to their traumatic childhoods, they didn't have the tools back in those days to overcome their trauma and things like that, so they turned to alcohol, drugs, they turned to the gangs, to violence, and it was just it was a really hard time, and it not only just affected them, but it affected their kids too. So 2001 came, I was born, I was raised by a single mother, 5 siblings. We grew up in poverty pretty much. Had a pretty hard start in life. 3-bedroom house. I don't remember a lot of my childhood, but I think that was just due to being the youngest. I witnessed a lot of domestic violence from my parents, and it was like a real toxic cycle that continued for a lot of years. My mother was an alcoholic growing up, and my dad was a druggie. Due to my mum's addictions, my older siblings had a hand in raising me. I know my mum tried her best, but it couldn't have been easy raising 6 kids on your own with no support, no help. Even though I didn't understand it at the time, my mum was trying to overcome her own traumas from her childhood. We never had much growing up, but she always tried to make sure we were fed, and there was always love in the house. I remember times where not having enough to go to school because there was no lunch, no food to eat. Going to sleep hungry, spent a lot of days like that. Despite all these things, I actually did have quite a good childhood. Family holidays at Nan's, special occasions, marae styles with my cousins, like a pretty average, adults partying, and, it was a pretty average upbringing for any Māori. And, a few years went by, that was all good. Things started improving. My mum started working to getting sober. At this age, I noticed I would have been about 10 or 11, and I started noticing a lot of my family. I noticed a lot of my family. A lot of things were changing, not good things either, and a new drug had hit the streets, called meth. A lot of people started getting into it and getting hooked. One by one, this drug started consuming people in our community, and then eventually made my way to my family. And like that, hooked. Little did I know that this was only the start of a long road ahead of pain, trauma, to come for the next 10 years. At this time, I was too young to fully understand what was happening to my family and why they were changing. A lot of things happened in this time period. Family members lying, deceiving, stealing, and simply doing anything to get that next hit. So a lot of bullshit was happening. And subconsciously, I didn't realise that it was affecting me at school. I was a very good student. I felt nobody understood what my personal life was like. So for many years I was really lost. I didn't know who I was, and that's something that I struggled with for a lot of years. In my intermediate years, I started college. In the start of my college years, I started meeting other street kids the same age as me, hanging around, the naughty kids. It felt good finding comfort in other people who knew and could relate to the struggles and pain. I was 15 when I first had my first cone. I thought I was the biggest stoner, just wanted to be cool and fit in. I was stoned pretty much almost every day. Just getting together with all my mates, scourging our money together. This was also around the age I started drinking, going to parties, and I guess that was just being a normal teenager experiencing drugs and so on. I started falling off track at school. I left school at 17, and a lot of my teachers gave up on me, so I gave up on myself. I'm kind of glad that I did make that decision, because school just wasn't for everyone at the time, and I just wanted to fuck around on the streets, get drunk all day, and that was the start of my binge drinking. Around the same time, my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, so it was a very intense time for my family, and a lot of other drama was going on. Due to their addictions, some of my family members actually had lost their kids, which were my cousins, so our family was still dealing with the impacts of that. So it was a lot of pressure, and it was a testing time for me and my whānau. I went on to complete my level 2 here at the Wānanga, and it felt good, passing something for once. But it was later on that year I got into a really bad relationship. It was verbally, emotionally, and abusive. This carried on and off for 2 years. I started heavily drinking every day, every weekend, every week for months on end, to the point where I would get blackout or even get violent, wasted. It was unhealthy, but the only way I knew how to cope was to drink, to get me through that stage. Almost a year passed, and I was sick of living the same life. I was sick of living in the same cycles. So I signed myself up for LSV in 2019, and it was the best 6 weeks. It taught me internal strength, discipline, structure, and made me stronger than I was ever before. But sadly, when I came out, I slipped right back into the old habits and fell off track again. 2020 comes along. I get into a course with hotel work, and then COVID hits and puts everything on hold. Later that year, I would have been about 18 or 19 at the time, and I had my first puff of meth at a party that I attended. Two days later, I started a course called Internal Strength, and that was rock bottom for me. The first day I was shaking, crying, and I couldn't keep still or stay focused. I felt ashamed, but Paul, the coordinator, understood what I was going through and didn't judge me. He reassured me and comforted me and gave me a minute to breathe, but I ended up completing that course. I think it was just the intervention that I needed at that time in my life. And that was a hard year too. I was pretty much homeless, sleeping on my friends' couches, and I lived in a halfway house for about 3 to 4 months. Me and my mum weren't getting along, and she was still grieving over my stepdad, so she also turned to drugs. And I needed to leave home to find myself. I got me a job and then boarded with a friend for a few months. It wasn't easy, but it would get me by for the well-being. I was sick of the environment and people I was around, and so I reached out to a lady named Nicolette that I had met earlier in the year, asking if there was any openings at her hotel in Hamilton. And I made the decision to move last year, 2 years ago. And that was the start of a new beginning. I was proof that you could still make a beautiful life for yourself even after years of trauma, loss, abuse and addiction. November comes around, 2021, and I make the move. Pretty much had nothing but the clothes on my back. I stayed with my boss for a week, and then they put me into a flat. I put my head down and I worked really hard, started making friends, reconnecting with whānau, and life was looking good. May to June 2021, we find out that my nan had her cancer back. We were heartbroken and devastated, of course. She was also living in Hamilton. After a bit of a depressive episode, my nan decided she wanted to fight and go through chemo again. And for the next 6 months, me and my cousin, my koro, had cared for my nan during this process. I would have to say it was probably one of the most hardest times that I ever had to go through. I never realised how mentally, emotionally and physically it would be to be full-time working and for 5 or 6 days, and on top of that full-time caring. Due to the stress, I started letting myself go, overworking, to forget what I was feeling. I was also grieving for a baby that I had lost early in the year, so I didn't have time to grieve for that. I put all my feelings aside so I could be strong for my nan. I was smoking 30 grams a week, heavily smoking weed and drinking to deal with the pain I was going through. Also, we were on lockdown, so our family couldn't travel to Tautokoas. It was nearing the end of her chemo. I wasn't working due to COVID, and the financial and emotional sides of things started to cave in. It wasn't easy, but I made the decision to move home, to take care of myself. I needed to, and my nan understood that. But I truly believe I was meant to be in Hamilton, because even though I went through that, I believe it was for a purpose. I come home and fall into depression. I needed some time to process the year I went through, and it was a well-needed break, as I've spent the last 8.5 months on the sickness benefit due to the decline of my mental health. I was officially diagnosed with postpartum, and I also suffer from depression, anxiety, and probably PTSD. I'm just really glad that I had supportive friends and family to get me through this time. late Jan, she returns home so she can be surrounded by her whānau. In that short time, her health had declined, and it was obvious that her health declined, and in the short time we were apart, so we spent as much time with her before her passing in late March, losing her battle with cancer and COVID. After her passing, I took her death really hard. It was hard for my whānau too. It wasn't just her death, but everything that came with it. All the bullshit, all the drama, all the years of secrets, addiction, things being swept under the carpet. It all came out, and so did the emotions. I pretty much lost the plot. I started hanging out with people I shouldn't have been and fell victim to the pipe again. I just wanted anything to stop the pain. I could slowly feel myself slipping through the grasp of addiction. I already knew and could tell what my life would be if I continued this path. After years of living and experiencing life of meth addiction, that was just a lifestyle I knew I didn't want for myself. And there was many people who I didn't want to be like. We all have choices, and the decisions that we make in life dictate the outcome of our future. We can either choose to continue the cycle or break it for our babies and our generations to come. I want people to understand that addiction is a sickness. They're not scumbags or lowlifes. These people are our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, our aunties, uncles, parents. These people have families and loved ones who care about them. Addiction is a part of mental health, and it's a result of poverty, unresolved trauma, abuse, effects of colonisation, PTSD, and so much more. Addiction holds a very big stigma, and we need to open up our minds more towards it. So many people are suffering out there, and so many people are in pain. More awareness needs to be brought to light about addiction, because meth destroys families, and it destroys people, and it destroys communities. It's taking our youth more than ever, and serious intervention needs to happen. Sorry, whānau.
You're right.
Where are the politicians who say they're for the people? Where's all the mental health funding, the support, the services? Where's the drug and alcohol support? We are the forgotten people and communities of New Zealand, and we deserve to be heard. These are underlying issues that have spiked under COVID, with the cost of living, housing shortages, gas, food. People are doing it harder than ever before. We need to be brave and tell people what's really going on in the hood. We need to have these hard conversations and talk about these things that nobody's talking about. As sad as it is, the game will continue, and the drugs are always going to be there, circulating, but it's just the reality of things. But the change can start with us. Even though I've been through a lot in my 21 years of life, I never let my struggles, downfalls, mistakes define me as a person. I've hurt people, and people have hurt me. I've fucked up, I've made mistakes and learnt from them. I've been broken, lost, betrayed, cheated on, abused, beaten, and people have left me, and even better ones have come along. I've been heartbroken, but that was just the universe showing me what wasn't meant for me, and all these things just make me human. If anything, the world tried to break me, but it's just made me stronger, resilient, wiser, and I'm grateful for the lessons our life has taught me. Because everything has led me to this exact moment. I'm 2.5 months meth free and almost 3 weeks alcohol free. I've got me some new mahi and I have plans for the future to move to Australia. My name's Tyler. I'm a wahine toa. I'm a survivor, a healer, a warrior, a descendant from a strong line of people, and this is my story.
Wow. That was beautiful.
Oh, sorry for the tears.
No, you're all good. Wow, that was amazing. Fuck, you're so strong and brave. I'm gonna leave it there. I don't have any. I think you just said it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you wanna?
No.
No, that was full. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story with us. Honestly, what an honour. And we wish you nothing but the best for your
Thank
future.
you. It's an honour to be here, and yeah, I'm really glad I did this because it's helped me. It's helped me release some of those things.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not ashamed about it. I'm not ashamed about anything that I've ever been through.
Because it's created who we're looking at now.
Yeah.
Hey.
And despite my downfalls in life and despite all the bullshit, I still want to come back out on top and be a better person.
Hard out.
And be a better, bring awareness and help people. Because, if we don't help each other whānau, nobody's going to come help us.
Mm.
We have to be there for each other and love each other and total for each other. But yeah, that's me.
Me and Tyler. All right. Thank you.